A new Utah law was aimed at protecting our right to defend ourselves.
Yeah, but as KSL investigator Daniela Rivera found out, that self-defense law is coming under fire from both prosecutors and victims of crime for its unintended consequences.
Oh, he just would light up a room when he walked in. I know you hear that a lot, but that really was our Corey.
Memories and photos are what's left of a life cut short.
He was the best friend anybody could ever have.
Kaylin Stafford says it was an act of kindness for someone her son considered a friend that led to Corey Haney's death in March of 2019.
He was needing a place. He had nowhere else to go, and Corey said, come live with me. And next thing we knew, I get a horrible phone call from the police department.
Once a roommate, now a suspect. Jesse Bruce is charged with murder. He told police he killed Corey in self-defense. Now, Kaylin worries the charge could be dismissed without a jury ever hearing the case.
So how can that be?
It's possible under House Bill 227, a new self-defense law that went into effect in May.
In our system, a preliminary hearing has to establish probable cause to bring charges. At trial, prosecutors have to prove those charges beyond a reasonable doubt. But a claim of self-defense now triggers a new process, requiring prosecutors to prove with clear and convincing evidence that the accused did not act in self-defense. And they have to do that before the case goes to trial. Prosecutors say it's a high bar for a pretrial hearing, especially when they're still working through the evidence.
If we can't meet that, then the case is thrown out. It's just jettisoned.
Salt Lake County District Attorney Sim Gill says the law is already impacting cases.
Well, this is just a sampling of the collateral consequences of House Bill 227 getting passed.
Those court papers represent people charged with serious violent crimes who are now demanding justification hearings under the new law. Jesse Bruce is one of them. His October trial was postponed once again, and now a justification hearing is scheduled for January. Even if prosecutors are successful, Corey's mom says it's an extra step in a process that's already painfully long.
It's excruciating. It's another brick in our backpack.
This is going to continue to clog our criminal justice system and re-victimize victims.
It's better to let 9 guilty people go free than it is to convict one innocent man.
Mitch Velos is a Utah defense attorney and author. One of his books examines self-defense laws in all 50 states.
It's just a little higher burden of proof.
That's how he learned about a unique portion of Florida's Stand Your Ground law.
And then I thought, let me mention that to the legislature.
So this law was born from your research for the book.
Right.
House Bill 227 brings Florida's justification hearing process to Utah. The intent?
Hesitating even a split second can get you killed.
Velos says people should be able to act in self-defense without worrying about the cost of defending themselves later in a trial.
The risk of dying should be on the criminal or the assailant, not on the defender. And that's why I proposed this law.
Outside of Florida and now Utah, Velos did not find any other state with this specific legal process.
Are we a leader or are we the guinea pig?
No, we're a leader.
We are unfortunately a very terrible guinea pig here.
Gill says the new law comes at a cost.
And we warned of these collateral consequences. Those were ignored.
His office and others did warn lawmakers as the bill went through committee hearings.
They will be requested, we think, with an incredible frequency, taxing the courts in a way that is really untenable.
This is a new section of code that basically copies and pastes from Florida statute.
On the House floor, the bill's sponsor, Representative Carrie Ann Lisenby, encouraged fellow lawmakers to support the legislation.
Currently, individuals who use their firearm in self-defense are subject to prosecution and often a costly jury trial.
Both the House and Senate passed the bill with less than 15 minutes of debate. But since the law went into effect in May, Gill says it's not just impacting cases involving gun owners.
I have one person who's stabbing another person. I have another person beating somebody over the head with a rock. And these are all now becoming evidentiary justification hearings.
The case surrounding Corey's death, too.
This is not even a gun case.
No, it wasn't. He was stabbed. Brutally horrible. It was horrible.
Kaylin says Corey was unarmed and stabbed multiple times.
Anyone under existing law can defend themselves.
Allison Anderman is senior counsel with the Giffords Law Center. Both Anderman and Gill say the right to self-defense is already built into the tradition of the criminal justice system.
So it's not giving us anything new, but it is costing us a lot.
People could always claim self-defense, they say, but now the decision shifts from a jury to one person, a judge.
The Utah legislature has given people a get-out-of-jail-free card for murdering other people.
Did you consider that this law could incentivize frivolous self-defense claims?
If we look at the statute as a whole and we weigh all of the provisions in the statute, I am not concerned with that. In fact,
we sat down with Representative Lisenby to share what we learned and how the law she sponsored is impacting Corey's family.
I do think this is a well-balanced statute, but again...
But this interview ended abruptly.
So, you know, you asked me for 4 questions, and you've gone well beyond and outside the scope of those questions.
Representative, you're still mic'd up. We'd like to continue speaking with you about this bill.
We don't send interview questions, but we did email Lisenby 4 topics we'd like to cover, including how the new law is working. 2 days later, Lisenby agreed to continue the conversation.
I believe it's functioning in the state.
She told us the law was intended to address politically motivated prosecutions, but could not provide examples of that happening in Utah.
There may be cases, I don't know of any, but I do know that they are happening.
But you don't know of any specific ones, you just know they're happening.
I think I just answered that question.
Lisenby said after reaching out to several groups and agencies, she doesn't believe there are serious issues with her bill.
And nobody could back up the assertion that there are broad concerns out there.
The KSL investigators reached out to the top prosecutor in every county in Utah. Most told us because the law is so new, it hasn't impacted them yet. In 6 counties with scheduled justification hearings, none of the prosecutors support the law. 1 is undecided, 2 neutral, 3 are against it.
Fundamental to our criminal justice system is our jury system.
That includes the prosecutor in Juab County, who had a murder charge thrown out after an August justification hearing. The presiding judge called it the most difficult decision he's ever been asked to make and hoped lawmakers would take notice.
I hope they will evaluate whether this new statute has had the results they intended.
Troy James Pexton claimed he was justified after shooting his friend while breaking up a drunken brawl. A jury could have reached the same decision after evaluating all the evidence, but the family of Michael Cossey, the man killed, will never know.
We all feel the justice system has no doubt failed us.
And for those who will undoubtedly leave today feeling that justice has not been done, I encourage you to seek out your representatives and discuss your concerns.
Lisenby stands by the outcome of that case.
And so he shouldn't have to face a jury trial. He should be able to avoid that emotional and legal expense.
She says people who use self-defense in Utah are victims.
What I did, I heard from victims and I acted, and that's the result, HB 227, and I'm grateful that I could represent those victims.
I think it's very difficult for victims.
Laurel Hanks is an attorney who helps a different kind of victim, not the accused, but people who've lost loved ones and want answers.
Honestly, I don't even know what to tell them because there are no words to describe what they've lost.
What would you want legislators to know?
I hope they would get more information about how this impacts real people.
People like Kaylin, a mom facing another holiday season without her child. Her chance for justice now hanging in the balance.
It's my son's life. You know, he's gone. He can't come back. And he needs his story to be heard. He needs a jury to make that decision.
Lisenby told us the unintended consequences of this self-defense law can be remedied with an appeal process, but we learned the Attorney General's office is the only agency that can appeal felony cases. Prosecutors wanting to appeal are at the mercy of the AG, and they have just 30 days to act. Should new evidence come to light after that, it is simply too late.
This year, it's serious.
Absolutely. Some of the driest conditions we've seen in years. We don't have a reprieve coming in sight.
There will not be tomatoes from California this year. because they don't have any water.
We're the most wasteful water user in the country.
We need every single person in Utah taking wildfire prevention seriously this summer.
The yellow is the new green when it comes to lawns this year.
You heard it. Yellow is the new green. That's the message state leaders continue to stress as we face dire drought conditions.
Yeah, they are pleading with Utahns to use water only for what you need. Once you take a look at this drought map right here, the area marked in the dark red right there shows just how much of our state is in the exceptional drought range. And then the light red, that is extreme drought in a couple of parts of the state there. It's a strong visual of just how bad conditions are right now.
So as we embrace our yellow grass, tonight the Utah Division of Water Resources has changed its traditional lawn watering guide with an extreme watering guide. That means they're now urging most of Utah to water only twice a week and only 3 waterings a week for southern Utah. That's their recommendation for the rest of the season. The state is urging us to water to survive, not to thrive.
And some Utah cities are taking it even a step further, issuing actual water restrictions. In Lehigh, residents are not allowed to water more than 3 days a week and not on consecutive days. For the second offense, pay $100. The third offense, you're going to pay $500. Provo City is not issuing any bans, but they do recommend watering no more than 3 days a week. In Syracuse, they have the city split into quadrants, showing which days you are not allowed to water and no one is allowed to water on Sundays. Visit your city's website for full restrictions and guidelines.
The drought brings a sense of urgency for many, but how did we get here apart from dry winters?
Yeah, and are the water restrictions really the solution to get us out of this drought and prepared for the next one? News specialist Matt Rascone explores these answers with the director of the Utah River Council.
Can we start with, we're right next to Southtown Mall. There's this road right behind us. What are we doing right here? Why did you recommend this spot?
Most Wasatch Front residents, most Utahns in general, have no idea that these canals are still here at our doorstep. The reason that Utahns need to understand these canals here are here because they're symbolic of the inaction and the obstinance and the moneyed interests that have kept us from saving water.
Where are we when it comes to the drought? We're hearing, you know, it could be the worst, and water.
We are in a really bad long-term drought.
Let me just state unequivocally, guys, it's really bad.
We can't treat this year as any other year.
This drought has got me really concerned.
The first thing to understand is that 90% of our water comes from the melting of snow. Our snowpack is crucial. The reason our reservoirs are so low is not because we had one bad winter. It's because we've generally had about 16 bad winters in the last 20 years. What we need to do is we need to respond. We need to adapt. And the way to adapt is to reduce our water use.
Yeah, let's get into that a little bit.
We have the cheapest municipal water rates in the entire United States. And it seems like a good deal to have cheap water rates until one looks and realizes they're paying property taxes on their home to lower the price of water.
So if I'm hearing you right, there is no money incentive to conserve water because property taxes kind of cover it. And so no matter how much water I'm using, I'm paying the same amount or it's still very low.
Right. It's great to have education about how important water is. It's true. But if we're not going to incentivize people to save water in their bill, then all we're really doing is giving it lip service. And we need to do more than give lip service. Those secondary water users, they need to pay per unit volume. Because you know what? That's what the rest of America is doing with its water. And that's why the rest of America is using less water than we are.
Matt Rascone, KSL 5 News.
Matt, thank you. And you can catch his full interview with Zach Frankel in the KSL Plus section on KSLTV.com. You can also find KSL Plus in the KSL podcasts.
This is a special report from KSL.
Welcome back, everyone. As we enter the hottest and driest time of the year, we're doing a deep dive into Utah's severe drought and the effects it's having on our own state.
The data from state officials show Utah's drought is getting worse as the summer goes on. Take a look at this map. It shows 98% of the state is in the two worst categories, extreme or exceptional drought. The Utah Division of Water Resources shows 26 of the state's largest reservoirs are now below 55% of capacity. That's up from 23 reservoirs just last week. Another effect of Utah's extreme drought conditions: when we visit grocery stores in the future, we'll pay more for beef. Ranchers say they're being forced to get rid of cattle because they're unable to feed them. This is due to Utah's high hay prices and the lack of usable grazing land. Analysts say this could cause significant supply problems in the next few years, and that beef prices could rise because of the cost to transport cattle mixed with an increase in demand.
And with no end in sight, many local farmers are wondering how much longer they can hold on. News specialist Alex Cabrero visited a ranch in San Pete County to talk to a farmer who says it's becoming a very big concern.
He could have done something else. Another career with less headaches.
Determines the amount of water that goes down.
But being a sixth-generation farmer means more to Wade Eliason than just a job.
You have to love this to continue to do it every day, day in and day out. You couldn't do it just to do it.
Farming has always been tough. Lately, though, it sure has been tougher.
Just do the best we can out here, and sometimes it's just not good enough.
Like many farmers, the drought.
What do you think I'm going to get out of that field over there?
Has hit this ranch hard.
Little horse feed. But that's just one of many. I've got 400 acres just like that.
Is Utah's favorite boating destination in deep trouble? Science and nature specialist John Hollenhorst and photographer Ken Fall look into that question and take us to a once hidden place that's emerging from the water.
We've been coming since 1982, 1983, so we've been here quite often.
They come by the millions to enjoy sky blue water in a red rock desert, the dammed up waters of the Colorado River, a shimmering man-made jewel for boaters. But there's a lot less Lake Powell than there used to be.
It makes you cry.
The level dropped 140 vertical feet in the last 2 decades, 40 feet just since last year, and it's projected to go much lower over the next year.
We have been experiencing a fairly severe drought over the last 20 years.
This year it will drop to its lowest since first filling a half-century ago, revealing surprises hidden for years underwater. The reservoir is now 1/3 full, stranding floats and buoys, leaving some shoreline facilities far from the water's edge. The main parking area for Bullfrog Marina is now a half mile from the docks.
2/3 of Bullfrog Bay is you can't access it compared to what you could even last year.
These boaters were delighted to find emerging from the water
There it is!
just the top of Gregory Natural Bridge, one of the world's largest.
This beautiful arch will distort, but we'll be able to see it next year.
Yes, these boaters pretty much hate Lake Powell.
Society is going to have to deal with just how stupid it was to build that dam.
Sort of rolls out like a big vase.
A revered destination, the cathedral in the desert, submerged for decades.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's spectacular.
I mean, seeing cathedral in the desert come out of water, it just really moves you. You can't help but be taken by this place.
Tonight, Salt Lake City leaders paid tribute to COVID-19 victims and survivors.
There are too many empty seats at our kitchen tables. There's too many phone numbers that now go unanswered. There's too many beloved traditions that will never be the same.
Today's forecast calls for more.
Daniel is on the autism spectrum and can't do remote learning. And he also can't risk going to school because his brother has serious health issues, putting him at risk.
Both of my sons are disabled. I'm taking care of them and working full time.
When COVID started, Daniel's learning stopped.
And I kept calling the school and talking to them and saying, hey, we've got to do something. But I can't be there during the day to log him in to work with his teachers. They kept asking me, could I quit my job or could I change my schedule?
Their struggle is shared by thousands of Utah families. The Utah Board of Education reports more than 84,000 students with disabilities.
The school does need to provide education in a way that he can access.
That's right. Federal law requires schools to provide students with disabilities a free and appropriate education.
Utah's minority communities have seen some of the biggest tragedies during this pandemic. Vaccines will mean curbing those trends, but getting shots in arms comes with barriers many organizations are trying to help overcome. Cars rolled out.
Have you had any COVID infection?
With people ready to get their COVID-19 vaccine.
Oh my gosh, Murrow!
We are so excited to be here.
Many expressing joy and relief to start returning to normal life.
To be able to socialize with my grandkids and my friends again. It's been too long.
This vaccination clinic is not at a hospital or pharmacy. It's at a church.
It's important for us to feel safe and if we're going to get vaccinated with a vaccine that's only been researched for 1 year, it's important that you're with your community leaders and people who you know and people you trust.
Statewide, many minority populations have seen inequity in the pandemic. Utah's Native Americans have the highest mortality rate. The Hispanic community, which makes up 14% of Utah's population, has seen nearly 21% of all COVID-19 infections. In fact, at one point, that number was as high as 40%.
When will we really be able to live our lives again? That's the big question. We continue our special vaccine coverage.
Long term, what's the new normal? COVID will likely never fully go away, but Dr. Vento thinks we've learned some good things from it. He believes healthy practices like wearing masks and staying home when you're sick will become a much more normal thing well into the future.
The county council is scheduled to vote tomorrow, possibly to overturn the requirement.
Yeah, COVID impact specialist Ladd Egan live for us at the county government complex tonight with more on this debate. Ladd?
The county council has the authority under state law to either keep this mask requirement for elementary students in place or rescind it, and they've scheduled the vote for tomorrow.
As of September 10th, 3,600 Utahns have reported a total of 17,525 side effect events. Top 5 are headache, pain, fever, fatigue, and chills, all common and widely reported by those who have gotten the shot. Just under 7% are more serious. Things like birth defects, hospitalizations, and death. So, are those side effects caused by the vaccines? We asked the CDC how they figure that out. In an email, they said those serious events get elevated to an investigation. They look at medical records and autopsy reports to determine if the vaccine was the cause. So far, there are a few side effects they are closely watching and researching related to COVID. Severe allergic reactions, blood clots, Guillain-Barré syndrome, and myocarditis or inflammation of the heart. The CDC has seen that one primarily in young men who have had the mRNA vaccine.
We were raised the same way. People think we're twins. We're best friends. We danced together, we, sang together, we did choir together. Just everything we did was together. We'd really followed the same road our whole entire life, and then I married a white man and she married a black man.
Zara, do you want strawberries on your waffle?
And I feel like just having some of the experiences as his wife and seeing how he is treated, even differently than I am, was really, really eye-opening for me. Okay, but we're just doing one first. We both have had very different experiences in marriage and how people perceive us, but more than anything, in raising our children.
Do you have a 7?
And then in school, when my kids have had things said to them or have been told things or treated a certain way, and her kids aren't, and it's connected to race. I mean, when people say, you look like poop, I don't want to play with you. Your skin's brown or ugly, or black people are bad, and I can't be around you or be your friend. And that's the tame version of things that are said.
In the days after she was reported missing, Gabby Petito's bright smile spread across social media like wildfire. People across the country looking for clues, hoping for a positive outcome.
Why did Gabby's case get so much attention? And again, so grateful that it did. But you had a beautiful young blonde white woman
Kara Chambers is the director of victim services in the Wyoming Attorney General's office and chairs the state's Missing and Murdered Indigenous Persons Task Force.
It is highlighting a disparity.
In January, the state released a report that found 710 Indigenous people were reported missing between 2011 and 2020. And while Indigenous people only make up 3% of Wyoming's total population, they account for 21% of the state's homicide victims. Researchers analyzed newspaper reports of all those missing people and found homicide cases involving white victims were more likely to get covered. 51% of them. Only 30% of homicides with Indigenous victims were covered, and that number drops to just 18% for Indigenous female homicide victims.
There's still a week left in February with spring break a ways off, but let's talk summer. And a question, where will your kids be this summer while you work?
It's the question many parents are asking because they know from years past, if they don't start planning now, they could be left without childcare. And the pandemic is putting added pressure on both cost and available capacity. New specialist Ladd Egan looks at the summer care crunch in this Unaffordable Utah report.
For Robin Garfield, finding summer care for her 3 boys means spreadsheets.
No, this isn't it. Oh, where's the one?
And hours of research.
A lot of work.
No knife, no knife. No knife?
Summer is still months away, but finding care that takes all of her kids, fits within her budget, and syncs with her work schedule, it's not easy.
It's almost like a full-time job trying to coordinate all of that.
It's made all the more difficult because of the huge demand for summer care. In prior years, she's ended up on the waiting list.
Especially in Utah because there's so many kids.
And the cost?
My paycheck pretty much just goes to pay for childcare during the summer.
Leaving her wondering if work needs to be put on pause.
More often than not, the conversation is, we can't afford you to go back to work.
In Utah, 57% of 2-parent households have both parents working. It's 83% for single-parent households.
The numbers certainly tell the story. Take a look at the percentage of increase from month to month. In just 1 year, Salt Lake City went from 71 reported catalytic converter thefts to 331. That is a 366% increase. And while you're spending hundreds, even thousands in repairs...
Good, I want to see if I could get any cash for this cat.
This is what the thieves are doing.
Good, I just want to see if I could get something for this cat.
With your property. KSL investigators went undercover.
Yeah, just go ahead and take it out there to those guys, and I'll call it out there to them, okay?
Taking catalytic converters to 3 different metal recycling yards in the Salt Lake Valley. And if you think they're concerned about where these cats are coming from...
You know what it's off of?
I don't.
They were not in strict compliance with state law.
You got your ID on you?
Yeah.
You've been here before?
I have not been here before. We're on the other side of that Jeep over there.
Oh, so on the pilot?
Yes.
Out of the 9 requirements, there's at least 2 each of these 3 businesses ignored. They did not document our license plate, and they did not get our signature, stating we had the legal right to sell the catalytic converters.
Need anything else from me, or is that it?
But hey, we did get a suggestion for the best cats to bring in.
They're worth big dollars right now.
Are they? How much?
Depends on what it is. Subarus, $1,100.
Really?
Yeah, really.
Time is huge in our business, and so anything that can save time and resources is something that we will explore.
All right, here's how it breaks down. In Idaho, it's a one-time registration costing $106.75 for the lifetime of the trailer. In Utah, average registration runs about $11 less, but here's the big difference. In Utah, companies are paying it every single year. And if you got a big fleet, that could add up pretty quickly, which is why Clasby says more and more trucking companies based in Utah are registering their trailers across the border. In fact, trailer registrations here in Utah have dropped nearly 50% over the last 6 years.
The state could be plating some of those tractors and trailers, and so they're losing revenue by not doing so.
Do you think that's a missed opportunity?
It is a missed opportunity. To what extent, I don't know.
Well, the KSL investigators do. We searched public records for 2020 and found that missed opportunity for Utah adds up to more than $367,000 for the year. All because 3,860 trailers owned by Utah companies are sporting Idaho plates. People like Alan do not like that.
But it's wrong. The state should be collecting those taxes here in Utah.
But people like Monty Roberts with the Utah DMV, are not overly concerned.
If you're asking me, probably not.
KSL investigator Daniela Rivera takes a look at just how those policies impact both police and the public.
I have a hard time describing him.
How do you put 28 years of life and love into words?
Just because he is so amazing and wonderful, and he treats me like the princess that I am.
Ricky Draper tries.
He is so funny and so hilarious and happy all the time.
Dustin Draper is her high school sweetheart and husband of 25 years.
It's been an amazing ride.
He's also a Salt Lake County Sheriff's deputy, and on September 30th, he was hospitalized with COVID-19. The last time Ricky heard him speak was moments before he was intubated.
He just said, "I just don't want to die." So that was the last words that I heard from him, is, "I don't want to die."
After months of waiting, Ricky and Dustin had decided to get vaccinated, but they both got sick with COVID before their vaccine appointments.
And had we gotten them before, I don't know if he would be where he is now.
The Officers Down Memorial page, an organization tracking law enforcement deaths across the country, reports more than 500 line-of-duty deaths attributed to COVID-19, about 5 times the number of deaths caused by gunfire.
It's a crazy and sobering stat.
Even so, Brent Jecks, president of Utah's Fraternal Order of Police, acknowledges resistance to COVID-19 vaccines in the profession.
It is as complicated an issue in law enforcement than I think I've ever seen.
The KSL Investigates team sent an anonymous survey to Utah law enforcement officers, and 340 of them took the opportunity to let us know how they feel. 64% said they're fully vaccinated. To the approximately 1/3 who aren't, we asked why. Responses varied from had COVID-19 and should be immune to don't trust the COVID-19 vaccines and concerned about side effects.
Hearing these stories, the KSL investigators compiled a list of every mobile home park in the state. We have 248 for now. You see, in the past few years, 6% have vanished. Affordable housing advocates fear that the squeeze is only going to tighten.
Is there anything against the rules with basically evicting everyone or jacking up prices and forcing them to evict themselves?
No, I mean, ultimately, the property owner owns the land.
Francisca Blanc with the Utah Housing Coalition says while redeveloping mobile home parks is legal, there are rules in place to protect the mobile homeowners.
They have to give residents 9 months eviction notice and follow kind of the proper rules, like, okay, if there is a public hearing, you have to send them, a certified letter to let them know.
But the rules do not protect enough, Blanc says. For example, if a landowner really wants a homeowner out, they can find creative ways to increase fees and make it unaffordable.
The law itself does not say you cannot increase by 20% or 30%. I don't even know what to tell them. It's heartbreaking.
If something does not change, expect more Utahns to find themselves in Lindsay's shoes, forced to abandon the places into which they've thrown all of their life savings and start over.
It's just heartbreaking to know that these big developers can go in and just take whatever they want.
One of the frustrations that we heard over and over and over again is that developers usually offer little or no compensation when they close down these parks. That is something that mobile home owners hope to change. There's a push right now for legislation that would force developers to pay for displacing mobile home residents, but it's really in the talk about it phase.
Every sentimental and physical thing of value, and then simply watch as it's carried off by hired strangers. No, not to your new home, but possibly lost, where you may never
things you can't ever replace.
See it again.
You've just absolutely lost everything in your life and you can't get it back. And I think the worst part is not knowing where it is. Is it still in?
Kim Adams' cross-country move from Salt Lake to Mississippi is a devastating tale. But the apparent loss of her property is certainly...
Basically, I just cried for days.
Not unique. The nightmares happened to Elizabeth. It's happened to Larry.
I was beside myself. I couldn't even function as a human being.
It's happened to Holly. It's happened to Joan.
It was the move from hell.
It's happened to Thomas and Hannah.
It's frustrating, it's garbage.
And it's happened to thousands of others nationwide in the past year alone.
It was an awful experience.
Simply put, the moving industry has been the target of a truckload of complaints. And while there's no one single reason why, the data is overwhelming.
We have team coverage on news specialist Morgan Wolf is in Moab with the latest on the couple's interaction with local police there.
And we start things off with news specialist Garna Mejia. She's in Jackson, Wyoming, where the search for Gabby is now pretty focused, huh, Garna?
Yeah, that's right, you guys. This is Gabby's last known location. Now, the couple wasn't due back in Florida until October, but instead police say that Gabby's boyfriend got home without her, informing no one more than 2 weeks ago, leaving behind no clues except for this place, the last known location.
With its quaint shops and mountain views, Jackson Hole, Wyoming is where you go to get away.
We flew from New York last night.
But for Gabby Petito's family, it's the total opposite.
This is any parent's absolute nightmare.
In what is now a needle in a haystack search, Petito's family splitting up to be in New York, Florida, and here, where they believe she was last seen exactly 3 weeks ago.
There's just something in our gut that says that we needed somebody here. This is my stepdaughter, Gabby Petito. She's gone missing in the area.
Jim Schmidt, Petito's stepdad, got here last night with a family friend. They've been posting flyers and advocating for Petito.
We'll go wherever it takes to find her.
Florida police say it would be a lot easier if the 22-year-old's boyfriend, now a person of interest in the case, would just talk.
You know, you say she's the love of your life. You should be in the forefront.
Instead, police say Brian Laundrie has remained silent. The Petito's family says that won't stop them from finding her.
It's about protecting your kid, but it's also about doing the right thing. You know, and the right thing is giving the information to us so we can get Gabby home.
Now, for now, Petito's dad tells me that he's going to allow police to do their search and their investigation, but they're here to advocate. It's why they have these flyers that they're posting throughout town. Now, they also tell us that the couple has been together for 2 years, but they've known each other since high school. In that time, her family tells me that they know of no incidents of violence or any sort of situation like that between the couple. They say, of course, that could all change with what we're learning today. Back to you.
All right, Garna, thank you.
One of the last places the couple was seen before going to Wyoming was in Moab, where police say they responded to an argument between the couple. News specialist Morgan Wolf has that police report. Morgan?
Yes, well, I'm actually outside of Arches National Park, and this is the road where they were pulled over by police and questioned. Police say that they were driving 45 miles per hour on this road that is only 15. And the report gives us a very detailed look into what their current relationship status was like.
A mother shouldn't have to bury her child.
Tears flow freely as Donna talks about her son.
I raised him to love God and to love people.
21-year-old Aaron Lowe, a University of Utah football player who was tragically shot and killed at a house party over the weekend.
My child was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. He did nothing wrong. That I raised a good child. He wasn't a troublemaker. He didn't engage in fighting and arguing, and he didn't tote weapons. He didn't do any of those things.
Her message to the killer?
I want them to pay for what they done, you know, and I hope they got a conscience, that they'll come forward and turn themselves in.
She also has a plea for those who may have witnessed the crime.
To please, if you know something, say something. He didn't deserve it.
Aaron grew up in Texas and is a triplet of all boys. His life was all about football. And he was living his dream playing for the Utes. Donna says all he talked about was playing in the NFL one day.
I knew he was going to make it. The NFL was where he was going. He was on his way because he loved it. He loved it, the game.
And he also dearly loved his mom.
I got a phone call every day. You good?
Aaron wore the number 22 for a reason. That is the number of his best friend, Ty Jordan, also a University of Utah football player who died by gunfire. It was just 9 months ago that Ty accidentally shot himself. Aaron was a recipient of the Ty Jordan Memorial Scholarship.
Aaron and Ty just became the best of friends.
A young man living his dream, only to have it tragically cut short.
My baby's with God. I mean, it's about to kill me. But I know my God, and I know God makes no mistakes. So whatever it was that Aaron had to do, he had already done it. And God called him home.